Everyone is crying out for peace.
Some of them died trusting the wrong person. Some died fighting for justice. And one died doing something so selfless, it will break your heart.
But I don't believe a word she said.
These were reggae's greatest legends, but nobody told you the full truth about how they left this world. You think you know their story.
Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them.
After this list, you will not be so sure. 10 legends, 10 deaths. Stay until number 1. That one will change how you hear the music forever. Number 10, Dennis Brown, Money in My Pocket.
Hey, for a girl to be my own.
Close your eyes and picture this. Kingston, Jamaica, late 1970s. The air is warm. Someone's got a sound system set up in the yard. The bass is rolling slow and deep, like it's coming up from the ground itself. And then that voice hits you, smooth, soulful.
One rainy day. She made
the kind of voice that makes you feel like everything is going to be all right, even when it isn't. That's Dennis Brown, and for a long time, he was the closest thing reggae had to a king.
She made me hate in mind that her love.
He's Bob Marley. The Bob Marley called Dennis Brown the greatest singer who ever lived. That's not a rumor, that's a fact. And Bob Marley didn't say things like that lightly.
Money in my pocket, but I just can't get no love.
Dennis Brown recorded over 75 albums in his lifetime. 75. He started as a teenager in the early 1970s, recording for legendary producer Clement Coxsone Dodd at Studio One.
To making me feel blue and dead ashamed. Yeah.
The most famous recording studio in the history of Jamaican music. He later worked with producer Joe Gibbs and had massive success in the UK reggae market.
I was a very, very hard to find. Oh, it's hard for a man.
Songs like Here I Come, Promised Land, and Revolution were staples on sound systems from Kingston to London's blues dances.
Yeah, so alone.
He was nominated for Grammy Awards. He was selling records across the Caribbean, the UK, and Canada. He was by every measure one of the greatest musicians reggae music ever produced. Here's the part that breaks your heart.
I had in mind was a very, very hard to find.
And behind all that talent, behind all those albums and awards and sold-out shows, Dennis Brown was quietly losing a battle with cocaine addiction. He didn't talk about it much. He kept performing, he kept recording.
You'll see what love can do after making me feel.
But his health was falling apart from the inside. He died on July 1st, 1999. Cardiac arrest. He was 42 years old, and here's the thing that really stings. The reggae world had started to move on by then.
Yeah. And a woman needs a man.
Dancehall was dominating the airwaves. Your roots music had been pushed to the background. So when Dennis Brown passed, a lot of younger fans didn't even know who he was. That's the tragedy on top of the tragedy.
The love I had in mind.
The crown prince of reggae deserved a better ending than that. He deserves so much more time. And if you think that's a sad story, just wait.
And a woman needs a man to cling to.
Because number 9 is going to remind you that even the biggest name in reggae history didn't get the ending he deserved. Number 9, Bob Marley, Redemption Song.
Redemption songs.
Now I know what you're thinking. Bob Marley on a horrible deaths list? But stay with me, because when you hear the full story, not the headline, the real story,
Them can stop the time. How long shall they kill?
you're gonna feel something different. It was 1977. Bob was at the peak of everything. Exodus just recorded World Tours selling out. During a football match, he injured his right foot. Doctors found a cancerous melanoma growing under his big toenail.
Redemption songs. Redemption.
The fix was simple. Remove the toe. What, catch it early? You live. But Bob Marley refused. As a Rastafarian, he believed his body was sacred and could not be cut.
How long shall they kill our prophets while we...
He chose his faith. The cancer spread to his lungs, his liver, his brain. By 1980, the most energetic performer in reggae couldn't finish a concert without collapsing.
Emancipate yourself from me.
He died on May 11th, 1981. He was 36 years old. Redemption Song, just Bob and a guitar, no band, was recorded months before his body gave out. Many people believe he knew. Now, that song sounds exactly like a goodbye. The horror isn't just that he died young, it's that there was a door, and it stayed closed. Imagine the music he never made.
How long shall they kill our prophets while we...
Bob Marley was the biggest name, but number 8 was the biggest personality, a man so full of life that when he was gone, the whole island went quiet.
To sing another song of freedom.
And if you think that's a sad story, just wait. Because number 9 is going to remind you that even the biggest name in reggae history didn't get the ending he deserved. Number 8, Jacob Miller, Tenement Yard. Kingston in 1980, politics, tension, but also joy. And right in the middle of all of it is this big, round, laughing force of nature named Jacob Miller. This man wasn't just a performer, he was an event. Every time he stepped on a stage, it felt like a party and a church service at the same time. Tenement Yard was roots reggae at its most honest, about life in the cramped yards of Kingston, the struggles, the beauty inside hard times, raw and real. A sound system gold. Dreadlocks can penetrate the red mind. All he might do is sell. Jacob Miller was the lead singer of Inner Circle. By 1980, they were on the verge of breaking through globally. He had just performed at the One Love Peace concert alongside Bob Marley. The whole world was starting to pay attention. He once rode a horse onto a concert stage mid-performance, just because he could. That tells you everything about who this man was. On March 23rd, 1980, Jacob Miller was killed in a car crash in Kingston. He was 27 years old. Years later, Nuts Inner Circle had a massive international hit with Bad Boys. The theme from the TV show Cops. New audiences heard that song millions of times and had no idea the original heartbeat of that band was already gone. Jacob Miller never got to see what he built. That one hurts in a very specific way. Number 7 on our list died at 39, killed, simply for the voice he used, simply for speaking truth. Number 7, Prince Far Eye, Throw Away Your Guns. If you've never heard Prince Far Eye, do yourself a favor after this video. Just listen to the man's voice. It's not singing in the traditional sense. It's more like the earth talking. Deep, slow, rumbling like thunder that doesn't rush because it knows you can't ignore it. His style was called toasting, speaking and chanting over a rhythm. Prince Far Eye was one of the original masters of it. Throw Away Your Guns is exactly what it sounds like. No metaphors, no softening, just this massive voice telling Jamaica and the world, enough is enough. Real name Michael Williams. He recorded through the 1970s and early 80s, working with producers including Joe Gibbs and Channel One. He built a devoted following in the UK underground. Sound system selectors loved him. Drop one of his tracks and the whole room shifted. He also crossed over into British post-punk and dub circles, which tells you how original he really was. When critics can't categorize you, that's a compliment. On September 15th, 1983, armed men entered his home in Kingston and shot him dead. He was 39 years old. The man who recorded "Throw Away Your Guns" killed by a gun in his own home. Life wrote that irony, and it's almost too painful to read. Today he's a cult figure, but the wider world barely knows his name. That wrong has never been corrected. Number 6 was only 22 years old, and he had already changed reggae forever before they killed him. Number 6, Hugh Mundell, "Africa Must Be Free" by 1983. Here's what makes this one almost impossible to wrap your head around. Hugh Mundell recorded his signature song when he was 16 years old. 16.
I think it's time for us to live.
And that song is one of the most conscious, most spiritually charged recordings in the entire history of roots reggae. Not important for a teenager, important. Full stop.
For us to live a better life.
When you hear that young voice, you don't think kid, you think prophet. And he recorded it in 1978, working with producer Augustus Pablo, one of the architects of rockers reggae. Pablo was immediately struck by Hugh's maturity. His conviction he wasn't playing at being a conscious artist, he actually was one. At 16, Augustus Pablo rarely gave that kind of attention to an unproven artist.
By the year 1983.
Hugh Mundell earned every second of it. The song was a direct Pan-African statement, a deadline for liberation, bold, unapologetic.
No more beating, no more slavery.
And it found a deeply devoted audience across Jamaica, the UK, and the Caribbean. Then in 1983, the very year his most famous song was named after, Hugh Mundell was shot and killed in Kingston. He was 22 years old.
In Africa, Africans.
The song said Africa Must Be Free by 1983. And in 1983, the man who sang it was gone. That doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like the universe making a very dark statement.
To live a better life. Yeah.
A generation grew up never knowing his name. That is a genuine loss. Number 5 gave the whole world a gift most people don't know came from him, and he was killed right on his own doorstep. Number 5, King Tubby. King Tubby meets rockers uptown. You know that feeling when a bass line hits so deep it vibrates in your chest, when sounds disappear and reappear echoing off into space like something supernatural? That feeling? King Tubby invented it. He didn't just make reggae music. He created an entirely new way of experiencing music. Dub, the art of stripping a recording apart and rebuilding it and using space, silence, echo, and bass as instruments. Without King Tubby, there is no dub. Without dub, there is no drum and bass, no trip-hop, no modern remixing culture. The entire architecture of electronic music has his fingerprints on it. Real name Osborne Ruddock. He started as an electronics engineer in Kingston in the 1960s, built his own sound system, built his own mixing board, taught himself everything. No school, no formal, just an extraordinary mind that understood how sound behaves. He was essentially a scientist who chose art. His studio on Drumilly Avenue became one of the most important rooms in the history of recorded music, just as Pablo, Yabby U, Jacob Miller, and they all passed through those doors. On February 6th, 1989, armed robbers attacked him outside his home in Kingston, shot dead on his own doorstep. He was 47 years old. He was in the middle of building a brand new studio when he died. We will never hear what came next, and the world doesn't even know what it's missing. What number 4 was the voice of a new generation? The one Bob Marley's own followers said was the chosen successor, and the way he died will break your heart. Number 4, Garnett Silk, Hello Mama Africa.
Hello, Mama Africa. Oh.
There are voices that are good. There are voices that are great. And then there are voices that make you stop whatever you're doing and just sit down and listen. Because something tells you this doesn't come around very often. Garnett Silk had one of those voices.
And I won't let go, even though
Hello Mama Africa hit the UK reggae charts like lightning in 1992. Gospel influenced, deeply spiritual, and when Garnett sang it, you believed every single word.
Hello, Mama Africa. Oh.
No performance, just pure feeling, pure soul. He came up through the sound system circuit in Jamaica, started as a DJ, then switched to singing, and everything changed. His debut album with producer Bobby Digital was an instant bestseller. Music journalists immediately compared him to a young Bob Marley. King Jammy, Steely, and Clevie, hit after hit. Then Atlantic Records signed him.
Hello, Mama Africa, how are you?
The whole world was about to know his name, and this is where the story becomes almost too painful to tell. On December 10th, born 1994, a gun accidentally discharged inside his home and hit a propane gas tank.
Don't you worry now, I won't be.
Fire broke out. His mother was trapped inside. Garnett Silk ran in to save her. He got her out, and he never came back. He was 28 years old, a wife, 3 children. 10 completed songs for his second album, released years later after his death. Atlantic's campaign never launched. The movement he was leading never fully arrived. He died a hero, and Jamaica never got over it.
Things are there to be found, the golden sunshine.
But number 3 died in a completely different way, strange, lonely, and painful, and it haunts reggae history to this day. Number 3, Slim Smith, My Conversation.
From you is a good conversation.
If you grew up around Jamaican music, this name is going to hit you somewhere in the chest. And if you've never heard of Slim Smith, go find My Conversation after this video, because that voice will stop you cold.
Some way today. Oh.
Slim Smith was a singer, thin as a rail, quiet off stage, but when he opened his mouth, this soaring, aching, perfect falsetto tenor came out that sounded like it came from somewhere deeper than just a human being. You didn't question it, you just accepted it like sunlight.
Now I must.
Real name Keith Smith. Born Kingston, 1948, he started in ska with the Techniques, recording for Duke Reed at Treasure Isle, then co-founded the Uniques, one of the most respected vocal groups of the rocksteady era.
To be in that position where I.
He worked with Bunny Lee, Coxsone Dodd, Lee Scratch Perry. My Conversation became one of the most versioned songs in Jamaican music history. Decades of artists kept returning to it. That's how you know a song has real power. The story goes that Coxsone once tried to dismiss him, and Bunny Lee told Slim to just start singing anyway. Right there in the studio. Slim sang. The room stopped. Coxsone had nothing to say.
Want to be in that position where
But behind that voice was a man who was struggling. Mental health, industry exploitation, money that never came, relationships that fell apart. He spent time in Bellevue, Kingston's psychiatric facility.
see more clearly.
On the night of October 12th, 1972, Muslim was locked out of his home, distressed, in pain. He put his fist through a window and he cut an artery.
In that position where I can.
He was found the next morning sitting in the broken glass, alone outside his own door. He had bled to death overnight. He was 23 years old. No robbery, no murder, just a man in the dark with nobody to help him. The greatest voice of the rock-steady era gone without anyone even knowing it was happening. That's the horror of loneliness. And Jamaica has never fully reckoned with it.
Got me thinking, you got me thinking.
Number 2 was killed in public, right in front of his children by people who didn't even know his name. And the date it happened, some people say that is not a coincidence at all. Number 2, Lucky Dube. Prisoner. Lucky Dube was not from Jamaica, he was from South Africa, and yet he became one of the most important reggae artists who ever lived because he understood exactly what reggae was for, not just music. A weapon against injustice, a language for the oppressed, and in apartheid-era South Africa, he had plenty of injustice to speak about.
When I was still a little boy.
He started out singing Mbakanga, traditional Zulu pop music. Then he discovered Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. But he heard those messages of resistance and freedom and recognized his own people's story inside them. He switched to reggae. His label had doubts. His second album went platinum. From there, he was unstoppable. World tours, stages shared with Peter Gabriel, Sting, Sinead O'Connor. World Music Award for Best-Selling African Musician in 1996. 7 children, a life that made complete sense. Now here's the detail that will stay with you. Peter Tosh, born 1944. Lucky Dube, born exactly 20 years later.
He sang to me song, yeah.
Both shot dead, both at age 43. Lucky Dube died on October 18th, 2007, exactly 20 years after Peter Tosh was killed. Same death, same age.
The policeman said, how
20 years apart to the year. You call that coincidence if you want to. On that night in 2007, Lucky Dube was simply dropping his son home after an evening out. 3 men approached his car. They wanted the Chrysler. They didn't know who he was. They shot him dead on a suburban street in Johannesburg. His teenage son and daughter were there watching. The killers were caught and sentenced to life, but 7 children still grew up without their father. And Africa lost a voice that cannot be replaced. Number 1 was killed in his own living room, right after the biggest moment of his career. And some people believe the story the world was told that night is not the whole story. Number 1, Peter Tosh. Equal rights.
Now is crying out for justice.
Peter Tosh was not just important as a singer, he was important as a person, as a force, as someone who looked power in the face and didn't blink. Equal Rights is not a love song. It's a manifesto.
Equal rights and justice.
Everyone deserves equal rights and justice, not someday, now. He meant it, he lived it, and in the end it may have gotten him killed. Real name Winston Hubert Tosh.
Everyone is crying out for
Founding member of the Wailers alongside Bob Marley and Bunny Wailer. And he co-wrote Get Up, Stand Up. He left in 1974 and built something extraordinary on his own. Legalize it. Bush Doctor.
equal rights and justice. Yeah.
Equal rights. He once smoked on stage in front of the Jamaican Prime Minister and lectured him for 30 minutes in front of 30,000 people. Peter Tosh did not soften his message for anyone.
I've got to get it now.
In 1987, he finally won a Grammy. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter. It was the end. Months later, 3 armed men arrived at his home in Kingston. They shot 7 people inside. And Peter Tosh died that night. He was 42 years old. The official story was robbery, but the reggae community has never fully accepted that.
Rights and justice. I've been fighting.
The man convicted, Dennis Lepo Laban, had actually known Peter Tosh personally, had spent time in that house as a guest. Some accounts say he was already inside before anything happened. Some say there were arguments before the shooting. Laban was convicted. The courts ruled. But the questions never went away. And in Jamaica, where music, politics, and violence have always lived close together, and people still talk about that night,
Till man gets equal rights and justice.
what is not in question is this: the most fearless voice in reggae history was silenced in his own living room, right after his greatest achievement, by someone who knew exactly where he lived.
Equal rights and justice.
He spent his whole life telling people to stand up, and they made sure he couldn't anymore. Rest in power, Peter Tosh. The world still owes you.